Good afternoon, my name is Vicki Morgan and I will be presenting the backward design model. I chose this model because I teach several math courses that have an end of course assessment, such as an AP exam or milestone. My job is to not only teach the materials or concepts, but to also prepare the students to do well on the assessment. Frequently I plan my instruction by starting with the end goal in mind, so this ID model seemed like the best fit to my current teaching style. The backward design model was first introduced in concept in 1949 by Robert Tyler when he referred to it as a statement of objectives. Then it was formally introduced in 1998 by Grant Wiggins and Jay Mattig when they wrote the book Understanding by Design, in which teachers focus on identifying learning goals first and then designing instruction or activities with those goals in mind. The backward design model has become a major influence on instructional practices and is the topic of many research projects, books, articles, and discussion blogs. There are 3 stages to the backward design model, and I'll go into more detail in later slides to the details for each of these stages. But stage 1 is to identify the desired results. Stage 2 is to determine acceptable evidence, and stage 3 is to plan learning experiences and instruction to accomplish the desired results. You can pause the slide if you'd like to read this further, but as I said, I'm going to go into this more in detail in the next couple of slides. So the first example I have of a design model is a simplistic implementation of the model, and it presents the development of a 3-week unit on nutrition where the curriculum objectives include understanding concepts of nutrition, elements of a balanced diet, and eating patterns. The evidence of learning will be the design of a tasty, nutritionally balanced 3-day meal plan for a camp that uses food pyramid guidelines. The instruction will include a video on nutrition, a pamphlet from the USDA on food groups, and the health textbook. Teaching methods will include direct instruction, inductive methods, cooperative learning, and group activities. The second example I'd like to present is of a research project performed by the Council for Exceptional Children. In this study, a modified version of the backward design model was used to determine if this instructional design method would be as effective for children with special needs. There was more attention paid to identifying the learners up front, including what accommodations would be required in the classroom. So this is a modified backward design where there's an extra stage for stage 1, which is identify learners. The assessment framework employed the traditional tools, but also incorporated more informal assessment tools. The last stage, creating learning activities, also required modifications in planning activities so the integration of the accommodations would be possible. The design included sequencing of activities, using small group peer teaching, incorporating prompts, and addressing individual needs. The study was a success in that all students with special needs increased their learning and understanding comparable to their non-special needs classmates. Now I'm going to present something that I actually utilize in my own classroom second semester when I'm teaching AP statistics. The largest concept tested on the AP statistics exam is called inference. Inference is basically performing tests of hypothesis to determine if a claim is true or not. It is imperative that students follow something called the 4-step process when performing a hypothesis test. So based on the 4 components necessary for performing tests of hypothesis, students must follow the state, plan, do, and conclude methodology. So stating is when the students must know how to identify which hypothesis test to use, and to identify the population of interest, and to also be able to write the hypothesis statements that will be tested. The planning stage is when they present their plan for the test. How are they going to do it? Are they going to use a chi-square test of significance? Are they going to use a 2-tailed z-test for significance, etc.? The do part is when they actually perform the test using formulas, calculator commands, etc. The conclude portion is when they must interpret their results. Do they reject or do they fail to reject the null hypothesis? And then they must communicate their conclusions. Stage 2 is to determine acceptable evidence. The The deliverables will include a 2-part test, 1 free response portion and 1 multiple choice portion. The multiple choice portion of the test will determine if the students can identify the appropriate test and that they understand the mechanics of performing the hypothesis test. The free response portion will determine if the students can communicate their plan, process, and conclusion of the test. Prior to the test, there will be several informal assessments including small group activities, partner tasks, and individual assignments. One thing that I must note up front is that the students have actually already learned each of the individual tests of hypothesis. They've been taught the material and they've been assessed on them, but all separately. So this is the first time they will have to choose between different tests and also the first time they have to perform the full 4-step process. The instructions activities will start with direct instruction on identifying the appropriate test. So they will be given their first lesson where we go through many examples of reading through different claims and determining which test would be appropriate. So their first assignment is to go home that night and to identify the appropriate test. The next day in class, they will work with group members to verify they all selected the appropriate test. Then groups will be assigned to perform the test on select problems, showing all 4 steps on a large poster board for the rest of the class to discuss. This process will continue with new problems, but with partner teams, increasing the accountability of each member. Finally, each student will work alone to complete 3 different tests, presenting the results to the class. I have found this is a very effective way of teaching the students how to perform the hypotheses test. It was a good example of something that I do in my classroom that utilizes the backward design model of instructional planning. This concludes my presentation. Please refer to my reference list. Thank you very much.